Yeah, no, 7. Yeah, Bruce and Joe is not tonight so far. Although it's funny, I got an email from Bruce this afternoon thanking him for the new information, and I thought he'd be dialing in, but.
That's just 7.
Okay, and I know Joe said there's a chance he couldn't make it because he had a medical procedure done, so we'll work with that. So, call to order, no reserve fund transfers. We're done with the line item budget. We move into the annual town meeting, and we're moving on to a new file. We're moving on to ATM warrant articles fiscal year 23 draft 7. And unfortunately, all Mike's good work that he did went out with the baby in the bathwater. So we'll have to deal with it. But I did warn Mike, it's my understanding that the Board of Selectmen will be meeting again next Tuesday evening to finalize the warrant. So it's not completely done yet. So we'll start in, yeah, maybe not. So Article 1 is done. I wish I had my mouse. Article 2 is done, 3 is done, 4 are good, 5, reservation, that's good, 6, storm windows, 9 River Road, we're done, parking lot was good, molding is good, historic plan is done. All right, community preservation housing consultant, Article 11.
I can handle that. You give me 1 second here.
Sure thing. It's Article 11, the Community Preservation Housing Consultant.
I have some information from Gene. People can copy. I have an electronic version, but I didn't get a chance to send it out to everyone.
Okay.
So that one. So there is an article further in the warrant about setting up a committee to kind of manage housing trust. Kathy did point out last week that 2 years ago at town meeting we adopted a mass general law to set up the housing trust fund. 3 years ago. 2019. So we accepted that provision of mass general laws, and we do have the fund, and there's a kind of a mechanism in there, but for all intents and purposes, what we have is the establishment of the fund and the ability to put money into that. What we have to do is find a way to kind of find some housing opportunities and get some people to really take some action off of that. So the article that's further on the warrant is really the offshoot from that really gets into the implementation, putting together the committee, giving them the charge to go out there and find opportunities and kind of run with that. The one that was passed 3 years ago was really Barbara gives Barbara the opportunity to set up an account and take money from various sources to put in there. And so the article where they're looking for the consultant is on the assumption that this committee will get assembled as a result of this article in this year's warrant, and then using this consultant to kind of help get this process off the ground and moving from there. I think we 2 or 3 years ago also brought in a consultant maybe to help with an inventory or another activity to kind of assess where we are and figure out what our housing needs are. But this one will be used to help get this committee off the ground and chase some opportunities.
Okay. I do have a question, and I know you probably don't know this, but so Barbara, can you hear us? I don't know if we actually have a connection here. I mean,
it shows she's on, but she's obviously not here.
All right. What I'm curious about is, should we be, considering these 2 articles back to back? So, should we consider the creation of the board before we do this? I mean, shouldn't if the board is created and the town wants to go forward with it, then we fund it. Otherwise, what's the point of funding it and then having the board at the end reject it? I'm just curious what the thought process was behind that structure.
I can stand to be corrected, but it was also my understanding that the bylaw had to pass first that created the housing trust. And that hasn't happened yet.
So we have an article that accepted the Mass General Law that establishes the trust.
Yeah.
Now, this bylaw will establish the
committee or the trustee.
Committee to go out there, and we're relying on a housing, affordable housing or a partnership that we had that really didn't do much. So this is really establishing a board of trustees is the term I'm looking for, to go out and manage that trust fund and again, find resources to fund it and then find ways to use it.
So Article 11 is tied in with Article 33, right, you're saying?
Right.
How does this fit into 44B or 40B? How does this play into it? Because don't we have to legally do that anyway?
I'm going to take a break for 1 second because I'm trying to get Barbara in here.
Then I can probably pull this up.
This one down here is on.
Hey, your box is on. It is. But we're not hearing you if you can hear us. Okay. All right. She's going to try and call the IT director to figure out why we're not connecting. All right, she's here, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
What am I missing here? All right.
We connected to the, somehow we got to connect to the speakers.
Well, that's what this, she said.
Is she turned on, is she turned on in there?
Yes. Right, and the red light was on, that's what she said we were looking for last week. All right. All right, I'm sorry I cut that conversation short. You were asking about 40B?
Yep.
Yeah,
So I would say 40B is different. 40B is a zoning or a bylaw that allows a developer to come into town and come up with a housing development that may require a little bit higher density than town regulations allow. But and it also requires them to bring in a certain amount of affordable or low-income housing along with market-based units that are in there. And it gives them a process to go through the a community's zoning process in a more expedited way. Instead of going to 5 committees at once, you're kind of doing a joint fashion. It also, I think, gives them a little bit more relaxation of some of the regulations there. And my understanding is that was kind of established to, you may get a community who doesn't like the concept of affordable housing or low income. They view it negatively. They deny the project and can't move forward. And the state's kind of make sure each community has affordable housing. For however that's defined based on incomes in each individual community, and gives them an opportunity to go through that permitting process that may otherwise be a little difficult or hard to get through. And it gives them a process to be able to go through that and get that off the ground. This trust fund and this board of trustees is really geared towards the community itself, trying to develop housing plans and fund some mechanisms there, as opposed to waiting for independent developers to do that.
So I had a question. Article 33 on the last warrant, copy of the warrant we had, talks about affordable housing trust bylaw, and it's not in the latest one that was distributed. What happened?
It is, it's Article 32, Affordable Housing Trust Bylaw.
They just changed the number?
They actually took out what used to be Article 30 and renumbered. There was another article I saw, when I went through and tried to transfer our votes, they took out one article, they added a bunch of others at the end, so this one is now 32.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
So if I use Gene's words, the $25,000 from CPC to hire a housing consultant is designed to help the trust get up and running and work with us to determine how best to implement the goals of the plan. Now, if the Board of Trustees that's being proposed doesn't pass as the bylaw there, the Mass General Law does establish that there is a Board of Trustees and who would make that up to go forward. So technically, that trust fund really can move forward even though the bylaw doesn't pass. If someone doesn't like the fact that there's a CPC member on it or, whomever, however it's proposed. I would also think that, if the bylaw doesn't go forward, we still have the trust fund. Gene can still kind of use the consultant and with what other mechanisms we have in place to kind of move a plan forward. Or it could just sit there and not be used. And I think if we look at the structure of the warrant, we have the CPC articles up front, the zoning articles always come in the back, rather than pull one out of CPC and put it over here, out of what appears to be order as we typically do that. One could do it, but that's the way the warrant is typically arranged, so.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't, we could, I guess I get a feeling, is make a motion to consider Article 32 prior to considering Article 11. I don't know what people's thoughts on that is. It just seemed the two are related.
I had a question. Mike, who did you speak to about this?
Jean, and I have a write-up from her
Okay.
that wasn't able, happened to have somebody
The
with
one
copies
thing that
and
just
pass it
jumps out at me is, surprisingly to me, is that the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee was that we vote to approve 5-3. I'd be curious
I believe there
who
was.
objected and why, or who didn't.
Yeah, I didn't get into
Why?
who did or what. My general understanding, and if Gene, could probably add a little bit more light, or certainly CPC. There seemed to be some concerns. Some of that was funding related. She was asking for $100,000 from CPC as initial seed money for the fund. They didn't like that idea.
The Housing Committee was asking for that, not Jean,
Okay.
the 100,000.
Right. So there was an ask for, we got this trust fund set up, but we don't have it funded in any way. So let's move $100,000 in there so we can do that. Part of the concern there from CPC was you're asking for a blank check. I think we do that sometimes here. You want money in case you need to spend it on it. We'd rather know what you're doing there. So I think they wanted to know. I think they wanted, rather than just give money to that fund that could be used elsewhere, and not knowing exactly how it's spent, I think they wanted a more specific project that they knew the money was going to be funded with. And I think some of this also was, money was coming from CPC to fund this. This trust fund that was going to be managed by the Board of Trustees, so it was really money under their control, but other people may spend it. So Gene did make an adjustment. You'll see in the article that's in the warrant. It does, one of the Board of Trustee members is a CPC member appointed by that committee. So that was a way of her, after this vote and these concerns came forward, kind of addressing their concerns and giving them an opportunity to participate as a trustee on the discussions on how things were going to move forward.
Can I just ask one more question? And I'd like to direct it to you, Larry, because when I first joined the Finance Committee and we talked about this type of stuff, I was uneducated on this, and I swear, I'm trying to recall, maybe incorrectly, that the purpose of the affordable housing aspect of this wasn't for us to go out and look for potential opportunities. It was to make it known that we had funding available for people who wanted to approach us and come to us to fund their proposals. So this was supposed to be kind of a passive approach on the town's part, other than to make it public knowledge that money was available to creditable and qualified projects that were presented by like organizations. Am I remembering that correctly, or?
Yes.
So this seems to be a more active approach than passive approach. This is like, well, the mountain won't come to Muhammad, so we're going to go to
Yes.
And I don't know if that was the
Well,
whole
it doesn't
intent.
necessarily mean that, town's gonna get into, building, a unit that has affordable housing in there and so
I
forth. But
understand. We're
it's a
not-
committee that's gonna go out and try, or a board of trustees that's gonna go out there and find funding sources and find ways to get the program implemented.
Funding sources, we are the funding source.
Well, the trust fund is, and that's part of the reason for setting up, adopting the trust fund. It's not just, so right now, CPC has part of their funds that are supposed to be used for housing. That is one fund, source. But this trust fund and this board of trustees would then not only be able to utilize CPC money, but it could use state grants, it could use other funding sources, donations from some benefactor in town who wants to give money to seed money to help kick off housing.
I'm not
So it
opposed to
has
affordable
other sources,
housing,
and
Mike.
that's the board that would manage that. CPC seems to be the largest, most,
I am an
upfront one
advocate
that
of
we have.
affordable housing. I'm just not, this kind of surprised me, the implementation of this mechanism based on my understanding of the history of it, that now we're taking an active approach. So that's the only thing that caught me by surprise. And what also reinforced it, catching me by surprise, was the 5-3 vote by a committee that generally is unanimous when it comes to spending CPC money. There's not too many that dissent on those votes typically that I can recall. It's usually 8-1 or, so anyway.
Just ask Barbara to make a comment. to see if we can do it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, yes, there we go. And my screen's not flashing anymore.
All fixed.
Yay.
All right.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome. I'm glad you could join us successfully. I'm sorry, you were going to make a point, I just wanted to.
In investigating the Housing Trust and the trustees, it is secondhand, I was not at the meeting, so I can stand to be corrected, but I believe some of the concerns was also that the funding and all the building will be completely controlled by the trustees, and funding sources or money spent won't go before town meeting, so there was some concern over the amount of control that this new board would have. That's my understanding, and that was the basis for the 5-3 vote. They don't have to abide by, they don't have to come before town meeting, they don't have to abide by conservation concerns, zoning, they can pretty much do what they want, and they're autonomous.
Unlike the Cedar Street project that we did with Habitat, where it had to go before town meeting.
Right.
Get voted to
Right.
donate the land.
But that that committee can't go ahead and decide, hey, we're going to build this unit and build this building, put 6 affordable housing units in there, we're going to build it in wetlands. We're not going to, it's, the development of that still has to follow your town regulations and so forth. As Lee was saying,
Mike,
it had to
you
do
go
with
beyond the scope of my
control of where it's
question.
going.
You're beyond the scope. I'm not questioning the legitimacy, I mean, the need.
So,
Could I ask I'm asking to become unconfused. I understood that Lee said that the trustees do not have to go before the Conservation Commission.
As I understand it now, and all I have read is the bylaw.
Right. Oh,
And its and the trustee creation. And that's how I read it, and that was the concerns
Okay,
and some general
okay.
discussions
Sure.
with those that are involved.
Okay, yeah, I've got that part, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. But then, on the heels of what Lee said, I understood Mike to say, well, yeah, well, wetlands, they got to abide by it. So they don't and they do?
I'm saying they're autonomous, and no, they don't have to go to the Conservation Committee, they don't have to go to the Planning Board.
Right.
They're autonomous. That's
Okay.
the concern, is the autonomy, not that they're going to throw all caution to the wind or be irresponsible, but we don't know who's going to be on the committee.
Exactly, so please unconfuse me. Yes or no, do they have to go before the Conservation Commission? My understanding is your understanding is their autonomy. And Mike, yes or no, can they build on wetlands?
I did not see that committee, had the
I don't see that in there.
that board of trustees in selecting projects can just willy-nilly go and build where it wants, what it wants,
Oh, and
without
I
having
didn't
to go
say
through those
that.
committees.
Let's make sure,
Yep.
they're autonomous. I'm not saying that they're going to throw all caution to the wind. That's how I've read this, is that they have great autonomy to implement their view of affordable housing, which is definitely needed, in the way that they see fit.
Could they build a 40-story building?
I don't
No.
see
Absolutely
that in
not.
this article, though.
No. This article does not say that they are immune or exempt from,
Any of the town
except
bodies.
for, I believe, 30B, which is actually bidding type laws, I believe. It doesn't say anything about zoning or conservation in here. And this, quite a bit of this bylaw, their powers, mimics the law that we accepted in 2019. So I don't,
Yeah, it looks.
I mean, I think the makeup of the committee is our own, but I think the powers, because I looked at the statute, pretty much mimic, because you can't go outside what the law says.
Right.
Whatever the law is, I forget what chapter it is, but
You get
So-
into construction materials. If the minimum is a 1/4 inch, can they go ahead and do 1/8 of an inch?
I don't see that type of authority expressed in there at all. I mean, and usually, when you go out to bid on public projects, you have to have an owner's project manager who has to do all that type of stuff. You know, so they're not gonna be able to skirt OSHA laws, you know, requirements for sprinklers, you know, fire safety requirements, all that type of stuff.
So they have to obey the law, but in so doing, they don't have to convince anybody else that they are obeying the law.
Oh, well,
no, I don't think that's true.
no.
Well, I'm just trying to understand what
So-
autonomous means,
So if I, if
if
I,
indeed that's the case.
That's how I read it, is that
Right.
they're autonomous. They don't have to seek, like, what I would have to do or a private developer would have to do.
Sure, right.
And that's how I read it.
No, I'm taking it for the moment as 100% correct, accurate, just to try to learn what.
And I want to learn more, and I think
me
that
too.
11 is premature before the next one passes.
Of
But
course.
I didn't do the order of the warrant, and I'm
No, of course.
raising my concern, which is twofold. And to address Jim's question, where I happen to have a little bit of knowledge about
Yeah.
where that fell down.
Sure, absolutely.
So-
I just, how are you sort of autonomous?
so if I look at that
If that's-
bylaw, here's how I read the bylaw. And yes, Kathy, if it doesn't pass, the statute that we accept as a town does create a mechanism for there to be a board of trustees appointed, and it names the 5 members who should be appointed by that. But that statute also gives the town to adopt a bylaw and kind of change the makeup of that board of trustees, which this one does.
I was talking more about their powers than
Yep.
the makeup
So-
of the trustees.
It-
Is what is,
Just looking at the article, there is a thing in here about the powers of the trustees, right? To accept and receive real property.
You can't do that.
By or whatever else. So someone could come in and say, hey, I've got this building, I want to turn it over to the trust fund for you guys to manage, and come up with a way to, accept tenants to come in here, or people to move in, or whatever else. So you have the ability not to build and construct and skirt the bylaws and whatever you want, but to accept and receive real property or money or gift and so forth to help you kind of, have cash to spend to implement the program, or a piece of property that can go in there. To purchase or retain real property, including without investments that yield a high rate of income and no income. So you buy real property, whatever else, not necessarily build property. If you're buying it, one would expect that it's gone through the permitting process. To sell, lease, exchange property, to execute deeds and assignments, to employ advisors and agents as they feel necessary, to pay reasonable compensation to advisors and agents, to apportion receipts and charges between income and principal. You're managing a trust fund, you got to account between principal and interest in all these trust funds. To participate in reorganization, recapitalization, and so forth. I'm not seeing any that says to go out here and construct a building without needing to go through your local permitting process at all. I just don't see that. They're in here trying to implement a housing plan and get money that can be used either for them to go out and purchase a building or have some building constructed that they would then own, but not necessarily constructed without going through your local permitting process, to you know, have a source of money to work with a developer who's building something to get some affordable units in there. The Habitat project that was accepted before would go through this Board of Trustees. You know, and if there was funding in this trust fund, so be it. So yeah, we've accepted this trust fund. It was supposed to be a means to get more sources of income coming in addition to just the CPC funds that we collect. Gene's trying to find a way to get this off the ground, implemented to address, you know, some housing needs within the community here. You know, if it doesn't go forward, you know, then we have CPC as the mechanism, and someone's going to have to go to them to get their funding. But, you know, CPC isn't out there actively pursuing projects, whether it be recreation or whatever else. They're the ones that are saying, if somebody is looking for the funding, they can come to us, we'll look at what it is they're doing, and, you know, we'll, if it fits their criteria, they'll, you know, recommend appropriation of funds for the particular project. But they're not an active committee going out and chasing recreation, chasing historic stuff, chasing you know, housing. You know, they're there for those people who are chasing it to come to them, and this is just a way that Gene is using to try to kickstart and keep moving forward the housing program that she feels is needed in the community here.
You got a question, Jim?
Okay. And absent that information, I'm drawing an inference by looking at different information we have in front of us. The first one I already mentioned was the vote to approve the article as written by Community Preservation was only 5-3.
Which, are you looking at Article 11?
I'm looking at Article 11.
Okay.
And yet the Board of Selectmen votes to approve the article as written 5-0-0. And you look at Article 33.
32, right?
32, excuse me.
That's fine.
And the Board of Selectmen votes to place the article 3-1.
Well, that means
they're going to fund something, all they want to do is place.
That means they don't.
This is kind of, it just,
the
inference I draw is nobody knows what's going on here.
Well, actually, I can see that, but I just want to make sure that we understand. Place is just the mechanism that the Board of Selectmen has to officially put something on the warrant.
Right.
It doesn't mean they support it. They've just voted to put it on the warrant.
If they support it, it would say,
to vote it,
say
you know,
to support it.
right, but I'm
They're
just
not supporting it.
People listening at home.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to make clear, that they understood.
Well, that's the inference. They're not supporting this. They're not supporting this, but they're voting for the money. And CPC is kind of lukewarm. I'm just stating my opinion that I don't feel comfortable based on what I see on the surface of this without having a lot more detail beyond what Mike has been generous to share with us.
I think.
I'd like to hear from CPC directly.
Well, this is coming from the planning board.
Okay, then let's hear from Gene directly.
Yeah, well, I think Mike has the document written by Gene, except it hasn't been sent to all of us. So it would be good to get copies of that into all of our hands tonight. Yep. So we can read it.
Okay.
Now, the one thing.
I'm not surprised Gene is very thorough. I'm
Yeah.
not surprised she has a multi-page document on it, yeah.
So we can hold off on 11 and 32, because I'd like to read Gene's comments too, to see exactly
That would
what
be
she
helpful.
has. Okay. I'm like, that's not my ringtone, I recognize that. So Barbara, just curiosity is, why wouldn't we put Article 32 in front of this and consider that first in the actual town meeting structure?
I'm sorry, because with all the issues on the sound, I didn't hear all of the beginning conversation on this, but I think Mike was saying that typically the CPC articles are in the beginning of the meeting, and then any zoning changes or different things like that are in the back. I can check on that tomorrow, or actually it'll be Monday at this point, and see if we can do something with that.
Yeah, or, we could always make the motion to consider it ahead at the actual meeting. All All right, so we're going to skip 11 and 32. We'll get that information out, so we can take it up.
Can I just comment on one other thing?
Sure.
So, to Jim's question, and Lee did, again, I didn't hear all of what Lee was saying, but this had come up at the selectmen's meeting regarding why the vote was 5-3 for the CPC on Article 11. And the response I got from Penny, and I'll just read what she said, is the CPC members who voted against the motion were concerned with some of the goals of the proposed bylaw and the makeup of the future trust/committee as outlined in the bylaw. The newly hired housing consultant will be guided by the proposed bylaw, which raised concerns. And I think that's what Lee was saying.
Yes.
Okay. But that what I just read was exactly what Penny had emailed me, so I just wanted to read that to you to answer Jim's question, because the selectmen actually had the same question.
So now in that context, I'll reread it about 10 times to see.
Okay.
And then before you get off of the CPC articles, I don't believe you took a vote on Article 2 because you were waiting for me to give you the CPC report, which I just sent this morning.
I did send that out to everybody, but yes, let me go back. Oh, you're right. I completely missed that. Yes.
Did you do 8? I don't have a vote for 8.
Let me go
We
check.
didn't do 2, that's for sure.
No, we didn't do 8.
I don't think so.
I should have highlighted these because usually the way I usually do this, when we don't have a vote in there, it's blank. It doesn't have any words.
Yeah.
So it's a little,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, so it's a little strange. All right, so,
I'll make a motion that we recommend to town meeting that they approve Article 2 as written.
okay, so we're going back to Article 2. Okay. All right, that's the community preservation report. All right, Article 2.
Did you send it around to?
Yes,
Okay.
it got
I
sent
didn't
out.
check my email.
It's today from Kevin.
Yes.
It's a 2-page report, it was
Take the day
very
off
comprehensive.
of the day we meet so you can go through all the emails.
All right, so Article 2 CPC report, I have first for the recommendation to approve the article as written. Do I have a second?
Second.
All righty. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That is 7-0. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so let's start over again. Going through this. Article 3, we all agree is done.
Oh, yeah.
Article 4 looks good. Article 5, we're done. Article 6, storm windows, I think that one's good. 7?
Yep.
So 8 is the parking lot. So this is $88,000 for the
Thanks, Mike.
parking lot and trail. You can see the summary here, kind of leads it all out. So this is all related to trail work.
I'll make the motion on Article 8 to approve as, recommend to town meeting to approve as presented.
Okay. Trail.
Thank you.
All right, so that was Jim. Do I have a second?
Second.
Lee? Oops, I ran out of room. This might be old punches. Okay. Any further questions or comments? I'll wait till Mike sits down and,
The only question I have, when we went and approved the buying that land 4 miles to do it, did we know it was gonna cost us to, or did we vote on it? Because I was under the impression when we were voting on that initially for that 4 miles versus the contractor, that, oh, it's gonna be done in November, we can do it quickly, there's no problem, we'll get it done, and I don't remember anybody saying, when we were voting on anything, that it was gonna cost, this is like only half of that, because part of this is the trunk initiative too, right?
Right.
My question is that normally what they'll do, you'll vote on, let's buy the land for 157 or whatever we pull, get out of the contractor's hands, but I don't think we knew, did we have any comments that this was gonna cost us when we were voting on
When
doing
you're
that?
talking to 4 miles, which one are you talking about?
That's on
Fisk
Fisk Hill
Hill.
Road. when we-
That one. Yeah, so this article, no,
No?
right, so the article to purchase the land was just to purchase the land. We knew that the trail committee was looking to develop that, and part of that was to develop a parking lot, but there were no dollar figures associated with that. And this article for this is a bunch of projects that are listed in the summary box here, which does include the parking lot on the Fisk Hill Road one, but it doesn't include other activities on other trails.
Okay. I'm saying in the future, would it make sense, well, it may, sometimes you just don't know what the cost is gonna be, but I remember when we were talking about this and the contractor was here and it made it sound like he came from the Midwest and a covered wagon wanted to have a nut farm. But anyway, we were like, oh, this is gonna be easy, we're gonna get it, by November we'll have a trail marked out and life is good, it only needs a chainsaw type of idea, and now all of a sudden like, okay, enough said, but I think if we know what the dollars are in the future, it would be nice when we vote on it. We probably would have voted on it anyway, but.
This is the usual way it works, just to answer your question, is that, you purchase something, and then once they figure out what they're actually gonna do for it, then funds to do that plan is then asked for.
Such as the upcoming article to pave a parking lot, or last year's article to pave a parking lot. When we purchased the land on Route 20, we knew we were gonna put a parking lot in it. When we got the price tag for the parking lot, people weren't very happy with the dollar amount there, or didn't realize, that was the cost of putting a parking lot in after you buy the parking lot.
I'm in favor of it, but supposing it came back and the parking lot was 300,000 and the land was 150, we'd say, well, we can't, why buy the land and have it sit there, we can't use it, that's all I'm saying, but.
Motion and second by who?
Yeah, seconded by Lee,
Who made it?
Miss Darren.
Jim, and then I said.
Thank you.
Yes, Larry?
In the text box, the initials SCA probably ought to be spelled out.
I forget what that even means.
Well,
It's been that, those people have come before, but I think they're from some
Somebody's in the
college, but it
town
should be-
meeting, it's their first time. They
Right.
don't
No, I don't remember what it means either.
I don't remember.
Honestly.
suggesting it be
Yeah,
spelled out.
it should be.
That's a good catch, because it's not explained anywhere else. You can't read around and see if you can find
I
it.
think Tom Chamberlain always, we get arranges for them, but I don't remember what it means.
We'll chase it down and make the correction.
It'd been
I'll figure it out for you and I'll send it.
Thank you. All right, so I have a first, second on Article 8. Any further questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? So 6 to 1 to 0.
6 to 1. Who was opposed?
Kathy?
Me.
I mean, the whole committee was opposed to it last year, so this is one of the things we didn't.
I like to be consistent,
Right, can add comments. That's pretty
among other reasons.
All right, so let's keep scrolling down again, now that I know what I'm looking for.
So we skip 11, right?
9, yeah, we're gonna skip 11 until we get a chance to read this additional information. We did 12, we did 13, public access is done, STA is done. Oh, that's why that looks so strange. When I filled in, I put equal signs in between them.
I got us all the way through 23, Kevin.
Hang on a second. Yeah, that's where I wanted to stop last week, so.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we did.
So 16 is done, capital improvement is done, ambulance, good, capital stabilization, good, fire vehicle, OPEB.
Some of those, we sent out a version with some modified language in the summary boxes, so we want to make sure people are okay with those.
Yeah, we'll have to include it in the last one and get everyone to do the final one. That's probably the easiest and best way to do it.
All right.
So like I said, I'm expecting a whole new set of warrant next week.
This is great.
So we did 22, 23 was the spending limit. So we're on to 24, and I do not have a vote for 24.
Right.
So good. This is where we're at. We're at the water
Yeah.
department.
This is a start, yeah.
So this is,
I don't know which version I should track these in.
I would track them in 7. Keep using the
I'll
latest
I'll
one.
move the 5s over to 7, keep moving things forward, okay?
Right, unfortunately. So, you know, Barbara, we usually have a lot more information in this box than we've got here. I mean, it's true what's in here is the summary, but usually we talk about what it's doing to the rates and what the percentage, and I know we attended that Board of Selectmen's meeting where they actually went through and discussed this, and it was some, I forget the number it went up. I know it's 26% for sewer, but I forget what it was for this.
Yeah.
3.6.
So I will get that updated for you. But the water rate is going to $7.18. It's an increase of 25 cents or 3.6%. And then when we get to sewer, the rate's going to $12.45, and that's an increase of $2.63 or 26.7%.
What was that increase again? I got 26.7, but what was the actual dollar?
$12.45.
Yeah, but then it up from that number right there, that difference, what is that? I suppose I could go figure it out, but
$2.63.
$2.63. Thank you.
Barbara, do you know the last time these rates were increased? How old are the rates in effect right now?
Yeah, the last increase was for quarter ending June 30th, 2015.
Thank you.
Wow.
It's been a while.
The only question I'll have is should we do it more incrementally? I mean, all of a sudden, 26.7% with
Well-
taxes going up at one swoop is kind of like, you put people in shock?
You can blame the BOS for that one because they use fund balances to artificially keep the rates low. And eventually you run out of fund balance and the chicken has come home to roost, and this is what a 26% increase looks like.
Just to give it some perspective, the water department budget this year is only $1,000, not even that, $150 more than it was last year. And for the sewer, it's like $36,000 more. On $2.8 million and $1.4 million, that's pretzels. But we've had to raise the rates, even though the budgets didn't change much, because what you just said, the fund has gone to, we're subsidizing it, because we were subsidizing it with anyway.
So the operating budget typically is flat. Many years, there's not a lot of increases in there.
And it's flat again this year.
There are separate articles to pay for some capital improvements as need be, but, and that's been drawing out of that fund, yeah.
No, they were drawing out of that fund to
Yeah.
specifically lower the rates.
Yep.
Yeah, so,
So,
It was interesting to hear the genesis, I don't want to get too far off, but water conservation is so effective that
Yes.
we're not paying for the same amount of service anymore because we're
Right.
using less water, so it's got to
Right.
come from somewhere.
It's funny, yeah, it's, well, yeah, ironic in some respects, huh?
Ironic's a perfect word, Ken.
in the testing we do to make sure we're not losing it under the ground. I mean, they're doing all those, taking all those steps to make sure that
So-
the losses aren't happening.
Yep. So Kevin, it sounds like the type of thing we want to add in here is something along the lines of, you know, at its whatever meeting, we'll give it the date, the Board of Selectmen acting as water commissioners increase the water rate,
I think we,
to whatever X percent. Barbara, it'd be helpful to put a reason in there. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. I'm just trying to be factual here. You know, they raised a rate, you know, to address whatever the issue was, so we're being informative to folks. And then certainly, you know, noting the last time that rates were raised would be helpful in that as well. So we can, Kevin and I can work with Barbara to tune that up.
all right, so, go ahead, Lee.
No, it's going back to SCA. I have the answer for that, but we'll finish.
Oh, okay. Article 24, the water department. Do I have a motion that we recommend to the town to approve the article as written? Jim? Do I have a second?
Yep,
Kathy?
Kathy.
Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? That's 7-0. All right, let's move on to the sewer department. I'm assuming that box is just very summary, basic like that too. We have some details, like you said, Mike, we can work on flushing it out with Barbara's information and whatnot. But just to be aware, you know, it is going to $12.45, up $2.63, and a 26.7 increase. Okay. So do I have a motion then to approve Article 25 as written?
Kathy?
Kathy, do I have a second?
Sounded like Jim.
Did you say, Mike, or are you seconding, or I got Ken? I don't think Jim did, so
Oh,
Ken.
Ken, all right, that's fine.
KN and KT. Further questions or comments? All those in favor? That's 7-0. Oh, what did I do? All right, sewer project debt. That might be one we already did because, nope, we didn't. That one's just straightforward. Pays for the, you know, the debt on all the existing outstanding sewer projects. And we're down to 2.
Hang on a second.
So this is actually just for betterments, not all sewer debt.
Oh, so why wouldn't we title the title then sewer project betterments and not debt?
I don't know. I'm sorry if there's like feedback when I'm talking.
There isn't, so you're not feeding back. It's interesting because the actual verbiage inside the article says for the purpose of paying debt service.
From the fund balance reserved for sewer betterments, it says.
Yes.
It is sewer debt.
Okay. It is
Sewer debt, but it's sewer betterments. And it says that before the sewer debt.
So we went to a neighborhood, we put in a new sewer system, connected people in that neighborhood to the sewer system. There was a bunch of money raised to do that, people that were in that neighborhood that either connected or didn't are paying on their
Right,
tax bills.
I know what the betterment is, yeah. All right.
You're paying for the connection, right? Not going through the street, just the connection, right? Or
They're paying for the connection
Pay
going
for
in front of
having
their
it there.
house.
yeah.
So even if you didn't connect, you were still paying because there was a betterment. There is a sewer line that's out in front of your house, and then you pay the connection fee. I think if you connected at the time we put it in there, you were able to roll that connection fee as part of that overall plan.
Sometimes it's a little cheaper to do it all at once, too, but.
Yeah.
Stupid question, as far as sewer and water is concerned, if you have a septic and a well, you're not affected by any of this, I guess?
Right, that's correct.
If you have a septic and a well and that line goes by your house, you pay the betterment whether you connect to it or
It's
not.
true.
Oh, yeah, you can't opt out and say, I'm not gonna pay,
You
right?
pay the betterment.
You don't
You're
have to
gonna pay the
connect.
betterment, but
You
you
have
don't,
to pay.
Pay the betterment.
but you don't get a sewer or water bill because you don't use anything,
Yeah, makes sense, okay.
but you pay the betterment.
I mean, if you just put in a new septic, you might not want to connect yet, but.
I hear you. Okay.
But the argument being, your home has got increased value because of the sewer line, whether you're using it or not, at some point down the road.
If the septic fails, it's a trench instead of
Right.
a construction project.
How many years are left on these? That Big Elm one must be almost done, isn't it? I think that was 2002.
I think it's in the back of last year's book,
Oh, is it?
full list of all the.
Yeah, the
Oh,
debt
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
it is.
Oh, I don't have the book with me. I can look it up, never mind.
Okay.
Big Island is 2025 and Woodside is 28.
How much longer?
Oh, it's not bad.
All right, so, well, actually, I need a motion. You're going to approve his
I'll make the
Do I
motion.
have a second? So that is Jim Waddick and Lee Darren to approve the article as written. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? That's 7-0.
Jim and
Lee?
this was 7.
Lee's coming out swinging tonight.
Hey, you'll never forget me again.
Hey, Article 27, maintenance of Fiskill and St. Anne's water tanks. Water tank maintenance count to wash algae off the tanks.
I'll make the motion to,
Okay. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
Ken? Okay. Water tank, approve as written, and it was Jim and Ken. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? That's 7-0. All right. Pipe coating maintenance program, Article 28.
this is the same thing we've been doing right along. Except last year it was 260, this year it's 90. So I'll make the motion.
Okay. Do I have a second to Jim's motion?
Second.
Lee? Okay. Further questions, comments? All those in favor? And that's 7-0. Modular trailer design for school bus transportation operations. If you recall, when the
Superintendent.
well, I knew this, no, but I was trying to think of his title. Is it the Director of Business Operations?
Business manager?
I don't know, they're always changing that name up there.
So when they were here, they talked about this. They
Yeah.
explained that there was there's already an existing trailer that's being used, that's going away, and that they'll want to have to move back inside of the DPW garage. So they'd like to see if the town will purchase another trailer to keep their operations, clean and efficient.
They've been leasing that trailer, but the owner
want it back.
refuses to allow
Yeah.
the purchase. He will not engage, so there's no choice.
And Larry, am I remembering correctly that buying this is well worthwhile? We save $200,000 per year?
Yes.
By operating our own bus system?
Yes,
So this is a no-brainer.
that's right. Yep.
Now, is this all-in cost, hooking up to
Yeah.
electrical and plumbing or whatever? It seemed like 200 was a fair amount, but if it includes everything,
It does say purchase and installation of.
well, yeah.
It does. It includes connecting everything.
Okay,
Right. So,
I'm sure they need it. I know that they were very cramped when they were in the DPW.
yeah. So Jim is gone with, well, first, do I have a second? Approval is written. Larry seconds it. All right. Any more questions or comments related to this trailer? All those in favor? And that's 7-0.
Kevin, before you go on, could I make a comment?
Sure, absolutely.
So if we could just go back to Article 28, the title for that article, I'm not sure what happened here. It should actually be Inflow and Infiltration Study and Repairs. It has the wrong title.
Okay.
Just so you know, I'm gonna change it, so it doesn't, it's not the pipe coating,
Oh,
it's the ongoing I&I project.
I missed that.
Inflow
An infiltration
and
study.
infiltration. You got a sewer pipe, it's got a little leak in it, water flows into it.
All right, you'll give us, I'm sure I'm going to get a whole new rewritten one next week.
Without our votes.
Unfortunately, you will.
All right, so we took care of modular design. Acceptance of the extension of Hillside Ave. Drive, I'm sorry. Oh, damn.
Okay, which one is that? This is a rerun, isn't it, from last year? Barbara, please help me out on this. Didn't we approve this last year and then something came up and it couldn't happen because it was a glitch and now we're considering it again, or am I mistaken?
It might be, give me a minute to make sure and confirm that.
This looks like an article we already looked at, either the last special town meeting or last year's annual town meeting. It just, oh, here I have it right here. Oh, 2022. Oh, no, wrong, sorry.
What article?
Well, see, the plan
Oh, yeah,
was
there it
dated
is,
2022
So it's page 35.
and revised.
What's that?
But, I mean, this plan is dated originally March 17th, 2022, so that's this year. I don't know.
Well, it's funny.
So this has been there for a while. It hadn't been accepted after it got built however many years back. I believe, Jim, you may be right, that at one point it came forward, but it still had some upgrades that needed to be made that the property owners or the developer had to fix, and which is probably why it didn't go forward. And then they finally got them all cleared up and met the standards that are needed for acceptance.
I swear to God, this was a warrant article last year.
It was
It was.
page
I
35.
think that what happened is something was supposed to get filed with the registry, and it did not. There was some glitch, and because something didn't get filed, we have to do a redo.
Okay.
So,
And I can get you more information of exactly what happened, but I'm not involved with this, so I'm not sure.
I do have.
But it definitely, it was Article 31 at last year's annual town meeting.
If you're looking at the book, you notice how it says 2/3 vote required in last year's book, but in this year's book, it doesn't. Is there
Okay.
still a 2/3 vote required? I would think there is.
I would think so, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't put this warrant together, so I will fix that also, or have it fixed.
Okay, thank you. I'm just gonna put it in there.
So aside from a paperwork slip-up, this would have
Same
happened a year ago.
So, am I taking that, Jim, that you recommended the town?
I will, yes.
Okay. So do I have a second to Article 30?
Second.
Mike? Any further questions or comments on Article 30?
I'm just going to say that I'm going to abstain because I represented somebody last year up on this road, so, and I'm not sure if it's there, but let's be safe and I'll abstain.
Okay, good, thank you for that. All right, then, I will move to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed and abstaining. So it's 6-0 to 1.
Oh, boy, what do I do with the rest of this stuff?
Tax increment in Noble Energy. So, we know it's a TIF, but, I mean, this is the business doing training by the looks of it.
Where is 201? Is that
It's
where the,
the truck stop on Route 20 by Hall Road.
oh, okay. Oh, that's right, I did hear that there was something going in there. Okay.
There is some educational piece that's going on here with some energy projects. There's a museum piece. The information is on the planning board's website as to what's going on there.
On the planning board website.
Yes.
Okay, it's interesting because this is being proposed by the Board of Selectmen.
Well, the TIF is, but the project itself had to go through zoning and the deciding thing. And talking to Gene on this one, as you can imagine, traffic in that stretch is a little difficult. In order to make this move forward, there's some mass highway upgrades that are needed that are quite costly. So I know sometimes we look at these TIFs and it's like, oh, to bring somebody in, we got to give up a lot of tax money, and, you know, they kind of get a break for 10 years until it finally starts paying off. this is a project where, they're really making an investment in roadway improvements over there. And this TIF will kind of help offset some of those expenses, where some of these other projects haven't necessarily had to make significant infrastructure improvements in order to be able to come forward. This is one where I think people in town are going to see some improvements with traffic control measures and other things that are being required to be built at this developer's expense.
Kevin, here is I think I emailed you about it, changing A to the word "an," electric.
Yeah. I see that down here. There's also a kind of spelling error in the actual body of the article, like there's a space.
There's a space problem, yeah.
Yeah.
Where is that?
In the 3,128 square feet for common areas, there's a space there in between the comma and the one.
Oh, yeah, got it, okay. And then what was Larry talking about? Sorry.
In the actual
Where are you?
summary box, it says including an electric voltage. It should be AN and not A.
Got it, thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
And I had a question.
Go ahead.
They voted on this the other night, and it didn't come up then, so I assume it's correct, Barbara. But the increment, the percentage goes from 100 to 90, and then it stays at 90 for an additional year before dropping to 80. And when I first read this, I thought it was a typo, but they approved it as it appears the selectmen approved it, so I assume that's correct. I'm just asking the question. It's staying at 90?
I'll have to confirm, because again, I wasn't part of this, but
Okay.
I will confirm that the percentages are correct in the boxes.
Yeah, because it just seems holding
But
the
I would
same
assume
percentage.
that, yes, they are, but I'll
Okay.
double check.
I was kind of with you because I thought they always went from 100 to 10.
They always dropped. I never saw one stay the same 2 years in a row. So, but
No, sometimes they do stay the same. We have other ones that have been the same for more than 1 year,
okay,
but I will confirm.
thank you.
All right. So do we want to take this up or want to wait till you confirm it? No? Okay. Then go ahead, Mr. Waddick.
I'll
Do it
make the
as
motion.
written. Okay. Do I have a second? Kathy? Any further questions or comments? Oh, you had a question or
I'm
comment?
getting ready to vote.
Oh,
You're
okay.
a little slow.
He's ready to pull the trigger, come on.
All right, all those in
Longer,
favor?
Kevin.
Opposed? Abstained?
It's
His arm was,
So Ken, where are you out of the three?
I'm positive, I'm
Okay.
voting
Oh,
yes.
okay, that's what I
Sorry.
was wondering.
Instead.
7-0.
he
Lag.
was spring-loaded, ready to go, Kevin.
The flag.
All right. All right, Article 32, we're going to hold off on, waiting for additional, the additional information we have, and we'll take that up next week.
We can't have electronic voting here. We won't really have to raise our hands even.
Yeah. To see, this is Article 33.
So, in looking at this here,
This is actually, do you remember when we went to the sewer discussion? This is money to pay for the land that the sewer pump station is gonna go on.
I was going back to 32, there's nothing in the summary box, so I think we can work with Gene to get a summary of what.
Yeah, I was hoping that we could take some of this and modify it. And Barbara, I'm right? This Article 33 at 7 Main Street, that's that, to buy the land.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah. There's nothing in the summary box, though, just one.
It's an empty lot.
It is a vacant lot right now?
On the town website, it still shows the house, but the house was torn down a long time ago.
Oh,
It's an empty lot. It's roughly across the street from Green Hill Engineering,
oh, okay.
on the side of the river.
Yeah, okay. I figured it was near the boundary there.
All right.
There's only one house after it before you're in Southbridge.
So one could argue, like we have for the earlier article, why would we purchase the property if we don't know if the project is going to go forward to,
That was the argument the other night.
into town, right? But
Fair question.
And that was the argument the other night on the select board, and they went back and forth and decided not to vote on it because they didn't want to speculate and buy it until they were sure what they were going to do with Southbridge. And I understand why they said that, and I understand that logic. My logic is
So that's why
opposite.
they said place. So again, I know, in the past, a couple of years, the select board or selectmen have, on petition articles, not want to take a position one way or the other and just voted to place. When I see place throughout this whole thing, and there is no sponsor for this article, by the way, so we need to know who the sponsor is.
Yep, I get that.
You know who it is, or are you gonna find?
It's gonna be the board. Probably the board of selectmen.
I would think it would be.
You know, the issue becomes, and I mean, Jim watched the meeting, there was a lot of back and forth. This property, the location of that property makes it so that if we're going to ever put a pump station in at that end of town, that land is needed. So there needs to be a decision made, even if, they voted not to move forward with building the pump station, now, but down the road, if the costs associated with the flow going to Southbridge continue to increase, and we want to bring the flow back, then we're going to need that piece of property for the location of the pump station. So there needs to be a decision made, do we purchase the property now for what the future may bring, which it probably will, because, next year's budget has $215,000 in it to pay the town of Southbridge. That's based on the current contract flow that's up for renegotiation because the contract expires, I believe it's in January of 2023. When the new construction happens in the Fiskill area, there's 70 houses in that one unit. That's going to increase the flow, which is therefore going to increase the cost that we have to pay Southbridge. So the Board of Selectmen wants to see what the new contract with Southbridge looks like before they make a decision on moving forward with the actual pump station project. But I think the land may or may not be a different issue, and, I guess, you and the board and town meeting are going to have to decide whether or not it makes sense to just purchase the land for what the future may bring and ultimately is probably going to bring.
So, just 1 second, I got a technicality. So Barbara, when you read this Article 33, you have this document in front of you?
Do I have it in front of me?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so the article is not in the proper format because it doesn't have the dollar total as a written.
Yeah, I know. Again, this was just given to me too, and I wasn't in today, so.
I know you
I on this the other night.
Yeah.
But it's like a check. You have, the written part is what counts. It's not the.
Well, that's because that's the way we like it, but yes, I see that there's a lot of issues with some of these articles that need to be fixed. Some of them are missing text boxes.
They're all missing text
It needs
boxes
to
down
be
here.
cleaned up. Yep.
All right, so.
I'd like to express my opinion on this.
Go ahead.
I think we should purchase this property and consider it a prepaid expense, because we're gonna need it eventually anyway. $70,000, to use Larry's term, is a rounding error for this piece of property in the critical position it's in, and it sends a message to Southbridge that we're serious about this, and we're buying the property to put this pump station. If they don't come across with a deal that's acceptable to us, we've already taken the first step to make sure we're in a position to put this line in and pump the stuff back to our own sewer plant. So I'm looking at it as a business decision, not as a hedge against, well, are we going to do this, or are we going to do that? Sometimes you have to pull the trigger, and we're not going to get burned on this. It's not a huge investment.
Wholeheartedly agree with you.
If you watched the argument the other night, you'd think we were trying to decide whether or not to enter into the Ukraine crisis or something, but that's.
And I agree. For the selectmen to place it says we don't really have an opinion. Hard for them to argue for or against it at the town meeting because they had an opportunity to do it now. I don't see how a effective, the discussion will be and who will be leading it in favor or against. And I agree. If for $70,000, it's best to have the parcel. Worst case is we don't need it. We can always sell it off in the end. But if we were to wait till the negotiations go a certain way and then we decide to want to move forward with the project, if I'm the landowner, I'm going to say, you know what, it's worth a lot more to me than $70,000. Or in the meantime, somebody else is going to snatch up this parcel and the ones next to it and do something else, and it won't be available to us. So I agree with you, Jim. If somebody needs to take some affirmative action one way or the other, and I think seeking this parcel now, is the best thing that we have to keep the option open for that project if we decide to move forward. And if we wait on this thing too long, I don't know if there's options here, and it's going to significantly alter the project as it's been planned.
When we agree, I feel comfortable with that. Thank you.
Do we know where the purchase price came from, since the assessment is lower?
It's assessed for like 51.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a huge amount, and I understand your
it's
philosophy,
buildable.
Jim.
It's a big piece.
So lacking purchase and sales
Flat, and it's
agreements,
wide.
we tend to put a dollar amount in there, and it includes, that amount would include some of the legal fees and the other work that goes on in addition to the purchase price. And if we get it for 15,000, net in the end versus whatever, the money's not spent or diverted to other things. It kind of goes back, it stays in the account, and the balance stays
It's coming out
high.
of the sewer fund balance, so.
We could resell that, right? Do you think we can resell it? Easy?
Whatever we want.
Easy.
Yeah, it's almost an acre, so, I think it's commercial. It says CM. I don't know what,
I can't imagine anything along that strip isn't.
Isn't that,
commercial?
what is
There
that?
was originally a home, on that parcel. The $70,000 is actually the price just to purchase the land. It doesn't include attorney's fees in that 70, based on what was said at the selectmen's meeting the other night.
So,
It says the zone is CM. I don't
That's
know
commercial.
something, or is it just commercial? I don't know.
It might be, yeah, because we had that, commercial historic or something like that, so that must be just straight commercial.
Yeah. No, I think it would probably could sell, as a lot. Especially, it's been torn down, right? We don't have that cost.
No.
Okay.
This is it's just a pure strategic play. This is just, it makes too much sense not to vote it, but that's just my 2 cents. All right, do I have a motion then to approve Article 33 as written, assuming it's going to be rewritten to actually come in the proper format for a warrant article?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Mr. Waddick.
I'll second.
Mike Hager, that's a second. Any other comments? All those in favor? 7-0.
And just an observation, I went by there today, and there's major work has begun on that 75
Oh, yeah.
unit, 55-plus community. And you heard, if you heard Butch, they were talking to Southbridge for their water, and they put a kibosh on that. They're gonna have to buy their water from Sturbridge, which means if we put in the sewer plant, they're gonna have to do their sewer to Sturbridge. And I did ask Butch specifically, and he says, no, the town's obligation ends at the edge of the road on 131. From there in, everything belongs to the developer. All the water lines, all the sewer lines, all the connections. So that's going to be a real boon for us in terms of if we want to go forward with using our own sewer treatment facility. We've got 71 customers already lined up from that end of town going back the other way, if that's the way we go. So this is all stuff that should be really good negotiating points to deal with Southbridge, to see, how sharp their pencil is going to be in terms of, Larry.
Something, I agree with you, something that will not make much difference to Southbridge, but that will to Sturbridge, is that when you introduce 70 houses over time, those roads will have to be plowed, they will have to be patrolled by the police department, and the fire department will have to respond. And we're going to have to understand as a town, I think, that things are connected to things.
Mm-hmm.
Not arguing against this at all. I'm saying no article in the warrant is an island.
No, no. And every article has a financial impact at some
It
point.
would seem so.
All right, so moving on, Article 34, transfer of land on Cedar Street. So there's nothing here, Barbara, other than the language here, and there's no sponsor, there's no rationale as to why we need to transfer this care and custody to the Conservation Commission. I mean, there's nothing here to justify anything. Do you have any comments or anything, or is it just so we take no action and just move on? Yeah.
Well, why don't you wait till next week? But I can tell you from being at selectmen's meetings that Carol Goodwin approached the board regarding doing this. I would have to confirm whether it was the Open Space Committee. I'm not sure. So I would feel more comfortable if I can get you more information on this for your next meeting.
Well, I'm curious then, who was at that meeting on Monday night then when this was
I was
considered?
watching it on TV, if you'd like me.
No, I'll get your opinion. I just
Okay.
want a statement of fact. Who were the 4 selectmen that voted for this?
Oh, it was
Mary
everyone but
Blanchard's
Mary
in the
Blanchard. Mary Blanchard was absent.
So we're to take it that the mother of a member of the Board of Selectmen came and proposed the Board of Selectmen take action and he didn't abstain? That's what this says.
She has no, I mean, if she was speaking on behalf of as chair of the Open Space Committee, I mean, I don't believe there would be a conflict because she's just representing the opinion of the Open Space Committee. There's no financial or, financial gain or anything like that where there would be a conflict of interest.
I'm just going, our sponsor here is a big blank space. And
Yeah, again, I don't know, I don't know who it is. I will have to get that for you. Like I said, I would just ask that you hold off till next week and I'll either have information for you or I'll find the person that needs to come to speak on this article.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Yep.
So it's just, oh, I'm sorry.
I want to express my opinion.
Oh, please, I'm sorry.
This came up as a possible site for the senior center,
Right.
and the townspeople got to vote on it because it's town-owned property, still controlled by the taxpayers and the citizens and the voters of the town, and they voted it down, and they showed their responsibility, and they don't need something like the Conservation Commission to encumber this property and limit its use in the future when the townspeople might want to reconsider it for something else. Maybe recreational, maybe something else, but why do we hand it off to a commission or a committee that's going to encumber it so it can't be used for anything? And look at all the fields we can't build because they're all restricted. I mean, the citizens made an informed decision and voted not to do that. I expect if we're going to do this, why don't we turn over 60 and 58 and give the whole road to the Conservation Commission? They will never develop anything across from the beach. I mean, where do we draw the line and leave it in the hands of the citizens of the town and the taxpayers and the voters to make the decision, and not 5 people plus 2 extra ones that sit on the committee? And that's just my personal feeling. I have nothing against conservation and trails and all that, but this is unnecessary, and this is just a grab of 14 acres of available land that can now grow trees and people.
We'll wait.
Sorry, I'm going a little over the cliff here.
No, that's okay. But we'll wait and, Barbara's, we'll take it up next
It's
week.
so unnecessary. I'll shut up.
Yeah, I mean, it is brought up. I mean, it is for discussion if people want to throw comments out there. I'm kind of with you on this. I'm like, I don't understand the need for this, but, we'll wait and get more
I'm
information.
definitely with Jim on this
If
one.
I
This is
felt it was
just,
in jeopardy, I would go along with this in a heartbeat, but it's not in jeopardy.
it's not like we don't have plenty of land in conservation with a passive recreation.
We got like,
14 acres in a chunk in a corner, I drove it. You can't even build trails in there.
We got
You'd be walking in a circle. I mean,
we got 26 miles of trails plus another 4. I mean, at the end of the day, the first thing we should look at is, because we need more revenue, is his property ability to get more revenue, whether it's homes or commercial well, how we can get revenue rather than just give it away. I agree with you. And
Well, the Board of Selectmen, they didn't vote to place this, they voted to approve
Yeah, they
it.
did, yeah.
Well, you had to be there.
Okay. All right.
So, given where we are, I think,
You want to make a recommendation? I'm happy to hear it. We don't need to wait.
If I was going
Always
to make a
can reconsider.
recommendation right now, I'd make a motion to take no action on Article 34.
Okay.
I would second that.
So we got Jim and Kathy with a first and a second on a motion of no action on the article. And that would come out, just the verbiage is that the town take no action on the article, is written. That would be it. Any further questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor?
In favor of no action.
Yes.
really,
Opposed?
Staying.
Abstaining. So that's 6 to 0 to 1.
So I will not be asking anyone to come to your meeting.
Well, I guess,
Correct.
I would like the details, though, so we can fill it in, and, who the sponsor is, in the summary box, so details, so we can at least give the voters an education.
how would it typically work that the town take,
No action on this article. Well, it's right, we have one here from last year. Article,
One. Every year.
I think it was the one we just discussed, it was last year when we voted down, the trails. Fiskill Road, I just need to find it. That's not it.
Yeah, I think the one up there was 4-4, so it automatically becomes a take no action.
No, yeah, I'll find it.
Yeah.
It's that the town vote to take no action on this article was Article 49 last year.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is not, are you going on to 35?
Hang on a second, I'm just,
I just noticed that was another place one.
yeah, okay, so yeah, now we're moving on Article 35. Now, 8 Brookfield Road is the old mini fire station.
I'm sorry, excuse me. So you just want more detailed information, but you don't need anyone specific to come to speak about this article?
Not unless they feel particularly motivated to come and speak to us about it.
Okay. Just want to be clear.
I don't think there was any questions on the board's comments or viewpoint on that article. All right, Article 35, sale or lease of 8 Brookfield Road. That's the old fire station and all the property there with it, which is basically the big parking lot and the whole bit. I mean, this is just giving a blank check to whoever.
No, so this is where this is. This is my understanding. The town administrator, the acting town administrator or the interim town administrator, put out a request for quotes or
Proposals?
I'm not sure the exact language, but to see if there was any interest in purchasing this property, purchasing or leasing this property. My understanding is that the deadline for that, I believe, is tomorrow. I believe they said it was May 6th. And so at that point in time, he will have information. Again, this was a very lively discussion at the selectmen's meeting also, as I think Jim and Lee will confirm. And the issue was, the reason it was just placed finally was that we didn't want to miss out. So they instructed the town administrator is going through this exercise, and if we don't move forward with the article, then no action can be taken on putting this request out to see if there's any interest in either leasing or purchasing the property. So the motion can be specific, or the potential of next week the article being more specific after, if there's any interest in the property, which I can't answer to you at this point whether there will be or not. I would assume that if nobody puts any type of request in, then it's a moot point at that point.
Okay. Jim, you have a comment?
So,
In the
I would
article
just,
that was on the
sorry,
warrant,
if I could just finish, I was going to say,
I
it
thought
probably
you were
makes
done.
sense on this one to just wait until your meeting next week to see what, if anything, comes to fruition.
Okay. but-
Sorry.
You know, I agree with you there, but go ahead, Jim.
in the article that was on the warrant last year was giving the Board of Selectmen permission or authority to sell or lease that piece of property.
Was it
And
2
it was
years ago?
voted down overwhelmingly at town meeting, and I think we voted to take no action. And so from that standpoint, this is a second bite at the same apple that was shot down overwhelmingly. And from my opinion, professional opinion on this, I think this is an ill-advised sale of a valuable piece of town property. It's going to be a giveaway that's going to be peanuts in terms of the selling price for revenue to the town, and it's going to be marginal in terms of the amount of tax we're going to collect out of this property tax in the future, and it's at a critical location in what's supposed to be the western gateway into Sturbridge. And I believe it was quoted at the meeting yesterday, and I believe I heard in the past, heard Mary Blanchard talk about this, or somebody else talked about it, but I know Russell Chamberlain has talked over the years repeatedly about the fact that when they narrow that end of town in Fiskdale, there's going to be a real problem getting fire apparatus from Main Street onto 148 to take care of that end of town if we somehow give away that corner there on Brookfield Road. That's going to create a real bottleneck and a problem for the town. Now, I don't think Russell's just blowing smoke when he says that.
We're going to consult with the fire chief on whether that location was suitable as sort of a substation.
Has he come back to us on it at all, Lee?
They're waiting to hear back. I
Okay.
believe that's what they're waiting for.
Because I know that was the concern in the past, so, I think, and I also believe there's some type of underground drainage going on in that corner of the property under the old fire station, or that coming off of 148, but I'm not sure about that. Maybe Butch knows more.
We'll take up Article 35 then next week when we have some additional information.
But what I don't understand is why it's coming back again after the town meeting shot it down a year ago.
You
Well, they
could
just
ask the
put
same
out,
things about fields.
It's on 5/9 that they would be
Did
open.
we take no action, or did it go to a vote?
I think we voted to take no action in the town,
Someone put in a substitute motion and we would have had to vote.
but it didn't, it
It
obviously
sounds what
didn't get approved.
might be different is, people think, rather than just a blanket, you give them the opportunity to sell it, you may now have something specific to bring forward, in which case it might be a different story.
My feeling is tear it
That's
down. Put a big
my
parking lot there.
understanding also, that there will now be information for the taxpayers, or for the voters to make a decision with specific information, and that last year, there was no specific plan. It was just to give the authority to the Board of Selectmen without any information for the voters.
Well, that's
So I
what
think
this
that,
is- that's what
that
this
was the
is,
difference.
No, there is actually a bid. It ends they're doing it on 5/9.
No, but I'm saying the way this is written is still is open-ended, it's the exact same thing.
By next week, we would know.
Yeah, exactly, we'll wait and see where we end up. Okay, so Article 36 is the parking lot at 508 Main Street, the one that failed last year due to a lack of suitable explanation that we sort of heard from the Board of Selectmen. And again, they're just voting to place it, so they haven't come out for or against it, and they've given us no summary, and I assume this is the Board of Selectmen who's the sponsor, but there's no sponsor identified either.
Yeah, I'll find that out too.
So,
Now, has some of this been done, or other money? Because wasn't it more money last year?
well, I thought it was supposed to be near $500,000, but I thought some of the other funds were coming from something else.
Some CPC. funds.
No, there's coming from the
There's a match
capital
rate.
planning or something,
Oh,
too,
right,
right?
hang on,
No,
I think it's coming
no.
from chapter 90, and it might be
Yes.
on the road list that I handed out to people last.
Um,
Here it is.
Great, go ahead, Barbara, tell us.
So the ARPA subcommittee
Oh,
recommended that $230,000 be spent from ARPA fund. The Board of Selectmen supported that. And then we also have a $50,000 earmark So I'll get the very clear clarification. I believe it's 230 from ARPA, 230 from this article, and then the $50,000 earmark.
Okay.
So it says if the town vote to approve the article as written, and it says voted to place 400, which is it?
It's voted to place. That, when you see that, they just put it
Okay.
on the warrant.
Mine says approve the article.
So
no.
I think they're gonna have to
No,
change the wording of that.
After the
They,
box.
if you haven't noticed yet. and
Oh,
that's what
voted to
you're
place, I'm sorry.
Every single one of these has the words that the town vote to approve the article, whether we have or haven't, we just didn't have a vote.
No, I thought some of them actually said voted to place,
No,
but
this is
anyway.
voted to place. So would anyone care to make a motion with this one or move?
I'll make a motion that we recommend to town meeting that we approve the article as written. Because there's other things that affect this. This gives us access to the riverfront property
Right.
that we don't otherwise have on the whole stretch of Route 20. I mean, this is something that should have passed last year had it been explained adequately.
This is the one
You're
across
much
from the,
better.
this is the one across from the dock, is that the one property?
Yeah, it's all covered with wood
Pretty
chips.
Oh, it's, yeah.
They said it was part of the, I think the TA last year said it was part of the business development program, but if we go there, I don't see any businesses, so I didn't know who's gonna be
It
parking.
used to be the Pink Haven Hotel.
Is that- Okay.
Yeah,
but
so the
people for the
business
rest of-
development part is,
That's what he said last
parking
year.
in that section of Route 20 is difficult. So the thought was by having a parking lot there, someone would come in, they'd have a place to park, they'd be able to walk up and down Route 20 and visit some of the
No
businesses.
businesses
along
there. There's nothing,
Sure there is.
there's nothing to walk to.
There are places in the
There are
Blackington
places
building.
there, but yeah.
Or-
And, you know, if you
Like-
give people a place to park, then, you know, maybe there's an incentive for somebody to add a new business, and it's just
A lot
part
of
of the
things within
overall plan.
walk, easy, pretty easy.
But you have to
walking
think of it as a
distance,
future thing too. I mean, it's something the town constructed even for future use.
Then you gotta get out of the parking lot to get Route 20, because last year the TA was saying, well, the senior can use it, and well, they gotta cross 20, well, that's no good. Oh, we can use the offload from the dock, okay. So at least we had a piece of land looking for a reason to buy it, and it wasn't like, oh, there's a real need, it was like either business development, or no, the senior center, oh, no, the dock, oh, no, we were looking for excuses to
No,
use this.
there was a need. One was access to the riverfront over there and part of the trail system. So this would have been trail parking.
Can we just say with the 14 acres, we don't need more trails, we don't need more access, we need more business, more revenue from our property?
This is already conservation land that we can't access because that's the only way to it on the whole strip of Route 20 is through that parking lot. We already have the riverfront property, the town owns it, and it's already conservation land, we just can't get to it, so people can't enjoy it. Because there's no other way through unless you go through private property, which you can't do. So this was considered a dual benefit, that you could benefit business by putting a parking lot so people could park and walk that whole strip at Route 20 from Cedar Street all the way to Route 148 and all the way back up the other side. It gives you all that stretch of sidewalks on both sides of the street that you can walk to do business in that end of town if you're a tourist or whatever you are.
More importantly, it gave access to riverlands that we already own.
Yes.
That there's no access to.
And it doesn't force Table 3 to buy more houses and tear them down and put up more parking lots to service their restaurants. Because that's what they've basically been doing. They've had to tear down, buy property and tear down buildings to accommodate their customers. And they have. I can't criticize the
And we'll have to
restaurants.
see how to work the conflict between people wanting to use it for recreation, get to riverlands, versus businesses using it versus creating their own parking, although it's difficult for them to create parking.
And it's the proximity to the river that's created the expense because of the controls that have to be put in place to keep the runoff from going into the wetland and the
So this was part
resource.
of the plan when it came forward to purchase the property in the first place, purchase it, and then we would put a parking lot in there. Last year, when this article came up, people didn't like the 230-something or 250,000 number. When we tell them it's twice that this year, I don't know how town meeting's gonna react, but it's part of
It's
the
half the
overall
money
plan.
now.
I think it was
Twice.
No, it was twice the money last year.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was $500,000 something last year.
They were saying the way it was last year.
But it's gonna be 500 again this year.
Oh, is that why I don't have that paperwork with me?
Pretty sure it was in the October meeting.
All right. But
The horse
That's
meeting.
another thing.
But again,
Okay.
I'm confused by the selectmen's vote to just place this. That tells me it's a weak vote, they're not really behind this, they don't really want it to happen, and yet they vote the ARPA money, so.
Because they remember what happened last year when no one stood up to defend the decision.
Right, and I don't
It went
see us
down
being up there
because-
defending this, so, yeah, lack of a sponsor, yeah, selectmen just, I don't know where this is gonna go, but I tend to agree that this was the intent, is maybe we can kind of explain where the fundings come from these other sources versus where it was the last time. Maybe people get a little more comfortable that half of it's coming from ARPA anyway, and it feels like free money to them, and they're willing to go forward, but
We have to do a better
if it
job
doesn't
answering.
pass this year, I don't know where it's gonna go after that.
It's going to stay empty for a long time.
Maybe we'll put
And we
a
do
sewer pump
already own
station
it.
there.
Yeah, we do.
All right, so at this point, I do have a first and a second to approve the article as written. I have any other comments? I mean, this is the last one I think we're gonna have to deal with this one, because everything else that's written here isn't even been officially placed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just quickly scanned through it.
Well, we do have the petitioned article at
Oh,
the very
well,
end.
yeah, we'll get to that. All right, so first and second here, any further comments? All
Yes.
those in, oh, I'm sorry, Larry.
Are there some sunk costs for this?
You mean costs already incurred?
Yeah, that can't be recouped, and really, I mean, are we halfway there?
The
Not-
engineering design?
Not physically, or a true percentage, but in a manner of speaking, are we already halfway there? And unrecoupable sunk costs.
Larry, I think we paid,
We paid for
with the
that.
agreement that they would raise the buildings and clear the property down to the asphalt that was there, I think we spent about $230,000. The owner that owned it sold it to us for $230,000 with all the buildings gone. I believe the asphalt was still there, but the buildings were gone. And that's what that's our sunk cost, to buy the piece of property.
I wouldn't argue that's sunk cost. I mean, we paid that money, we can recoup that and whatever.
Oh, yeah, we
I think
can
the
sell it.
sunk cost is,
The engineering
you know,
study.
somebody's done engineering to get this thing, there was a set of plans, I
If someone
remember
wanted
last
to
year.
put a building in
But
there that didn't
that's
need,
small dollars, I think.
if they
compared
wanted to
what
put a
we're talking
business
here.
in there that didn't need any parking, they'd be all set.
I think the issue is, town voted this for a
think that
particular
went-
purpose, to turn it into a parking lot. We're not quite ready to put it into a parking lot. If you're not willing to spend the money to get it to the finish line, then figure out what to do with that piece of property versus let it just kind of sit there.
Well, what you could do is
My phone's right
put a
here.
garden in there and plant grass and put a pathway and lead it out to the riverfront.
I think everyone agrees that last year, the comparable article was ill-presented.
Yes.
I think I had
But with selectmen just voting to place versus getting behind it, I don't know who's going to present it any better this year.
Well, now
You know what?
that is
If
a
we-
point.
No, but, I mean, we have to be able to, write up the summary and explain, here's what it is, here's how we're paying for it, here's what we're going for it if we think this is in the best interest of the town. Because there have been, highly functional, very efficient board of selections, and then the other end of the spectrum, there've been highly dysfunctional, very inefficient board of the selectmen, and we have to kind of just go between that spectrum and say, here's what we think is best, and we'll put it in there. And I don't know, I would vote for this.
And in addition to just talking about the other funding mechanism in here, maybe we start with a little short summary in the background, why this land was purchased in the first place, that this is part of the intent, so
Yeah.
people kind of get the background
Some
as
history.
to what it was, and
Yes.
here's the cost
Good
to get it to
idea.
the next phase.
Yeah, and just make sure we keep it very factual, because we don't want to make it look like, we're not trying to make the argument to buy it. We want to just hear the facts, why we support the purchase of this
We can go
property.
back to the article where we bought it and pull
And to-
something out of the summary box.
To build on Larry's point, by the time we got to this, there was a lot of controversial stuff that went on before it that was just mentally exhausting for Jeff and anyone else that had to get up, because there was a lot of controversial stuff going on, including 70 Cedar Street, I believe, as a potential site, and there were other things that were like that. And I think it was just like, at that point, their head was ready to explode.
Yeah, the climate of the meeting changed during the meeting, yeah.
And the comment that someone's neighbor had put in a driveway for $16,000, that didn't reinforce the need to spend this kind of money.
I remember that comment, yep.
I think they do need to talk about the fact that it's near the river, and you
Well,
have to
that's-
do that a certain amount of work, because that, I don't think was explained well at
No,
all.
it wasn't, yeah, there was, that
Part
whole
of the
thing about the
cost.
need to take care of the stormwater
Right.
was not addressed at all, and that's what a lot of the costs in the engineering are addressing, is the stormwater. So we don't run it right off into the river.
Lighting and handicapped access and all that type of stuff.
All right, so I still have a first and a second. Any other comments or questions? Larry?
Yeah, would you repeat the motion, please?
The motion is to approve the article as written. Jim was the first, and Lee was the second.
Thank you.
Oh, goodness, sorry.
All right, I think that was the last comment on the subject.
It's warm in here, it's making me sleepy.
All right, so all those in favor?
Oh, boy.
Opposed? So 5-2-0.
Larry, we're going to name it after you.
Contrary.
It's like the bridge to nowhere.
Got built. All right, so there's just like articles here that are just placeholders with nothing. Except for the last one, which doesn't have a number, so I don't even know how to address it.
Which one is that?
Petition article.
There is no,
That'll be the last one article. That's why it's at the end, because we usually put petitioned articles last.
Okay, do we have any idea what this is, why this was put on by petition and what the thinking was behind it? I mean,
Nope.
I assume this has to do with the whole thing about changing the seal and motto to remove the sword from atop the
Flag, you changed the...
yeah, crop the,
I think there's a figure of a Native American
right,
Indian.
and the sword's right above it.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure, I don't have incontrovertible information, but I'm pretty sure the idea was
The flag right there.
that
oh, yeah, actually, yeah.
that the seal as,
See the sword above the,
Yeah.
that was a big thing.
that it is unsuitable
Native American, I'm not
for
sure.
the Commonwealth, I think is the notion. And if you read the article as it is now, the petition,
Yeah.
it all but says that.
Well, I guess, is it, I just look at it and say, the work of the special commission, is that what it's called, special commission relative to the seal model?
Yes, here, it's on January 6, 2021, the legislature approved a bill to establish a special commission relative to the seal and model of the Commonwealth and to invite native leaders from the, I'm not going to pronounce this right, Wampanoag,
Yeah.
Nipmuc, and Massachusetts nations to sit with state legislators, historians, and other appointees on this 19-member, and then it goes off, probably committee. Doesn't really say the rest. I think to discuss it, to change the flag. Oh, here it is, more. To make recommendations for changes to the Massachusetts flag and seal, and make recommendations for an educational program on the history and meaning of the flag and seal. So,
You might remember a few years ago, the owner of the pro football team in Washington, D.C., then known as the Washington Redskins, refused to change the name, and so the outcome was it would be called with a capital T, the Washington Football Team. And I'm pretty sure that impetus is in keeping with this article.
yeah, it says here, too, a little explanation that the sword is seen as a symbol of violence against indigenous people and a memorial to the violent colonization of their homelands. And finally, native leaders of the area are being consulted about a new design for the flag and seal that may better express the ideals of peace, justice, and equality for all the people who now call the Commonwealth home. This is, I don't know who this was written by. It might be by the committee who's doing it, but.
Yeah, it's probably it, because Cleveland Indians now are no longer
Yeah,
Cleveland
they're not
Indians
in
either.
Cleveland
They're-
Indians either.
Yeah, the Cleveland baseball team is
I had to
not,
look them up, but who are these people? I didn't even
they're
know
not
who
the
they were.
Indians anymore.
Cleveland something or other.
Guardians.
Guardians, there you go, yeah. And then you have the Washington Commanders, right?
Commander.
A lot of schools who have had,
The only one left of the Atlanta
at
Braves.
these,
They
you know, the
haven't
high
changed.
schools have changed their mottos or nicknames of their sports teams too.
They're way behind. I mean, St. John's University changed their name from the Redmen to the Red Storm.
Red
That's going to be
Storm, yeah.
25, 30 years ago.
Oh.
UMass changed back in the 70s, I think.
Do we have a motion to approve the article as written?
So moved.
All right. So we're just going to call this petition article at this point, since it's the only one, and we don't have a number yet. Maybe, you know, petition article, you know, special commission, et cetera. All right, so approve as written with Kathy being the first. Do I have a second? Ken. Any further questions or comments related to this article? All those in favor? And opposed?
I'm going to abstain, I don't have enough info on it.
6-0 to 1. Okay, so that's our first full pass through the annual town meeting warrant. Changes are still coming, as we all know, and Barbara will be able to provide us some additional information. So now I am going to move on to the file titled Special Town Meeting June 2022 Draft 3. And we're going to use that going forward. Yeah, make sure you save it, yeah. We're wording that the hard way.
So I gotta move all my 5 notes over to 7. You know, I can share that with you,
So-
Barbara.
So the first article is Article 46, Betterment Payoff, Dissolving of Betterment. And the first question I have coming out of this is, why is this coming from free cash and not from the sewer funds? Since it deals specifically with sewer betterments.
Because it's written wrong.
Okay, so are you gonna
It's
change?
it's from the fund balance reserve for sewer betterments.
Exactly, so can you,
I will fix it.
Thank
You guys can vote it, and I will rewrite it
no,
for
I'm
you.
going to wait and act on it once we see the corrected language.
Okay, but it is coming from the fund balance in the sewer fund.
Yeah, okay, that's where it should come from, so thank you for correcting that.
Yep.
So, I mean, why can't we vote that tonight? We know the change is gonna be made on a piece of paper. The vote would reflect that we're approving the article as written with the understanding that it'll be written to reflect the sewer.
I guess you could if you'd like to. I'm just, I mean,
Gotta
again,
trust me, Kevin.
no, I do, but I mean, I look at this and say, the Board of Selectmen voted this as it's written. You know, and,
Well, then, well, here's another thing. So here's what we can do. Rather than having to go back and fix the article, our motion could be,
Yeah, we-
you know, that the town,
Please don't do that.
yeah, well, yeah. We'll get the language and take care of it. Article 47, Snow and Removal Deficit.
Hang on,
Um, What is the deficit? Because you know how much I love these things that just say sum of money.
Yes, so
Put it this way for a
we
couple-
just this week, we paid the final salt bills.
Okay?
And so I will have the exact amount, and I'm gonna reword this to have the dollar amount in it.
You are
It just, it needed just to be on there, so we didn't lose sight of this article as we were still processing bills, so, I just confirmed yesterday with DPW that all the salt bills have come in. and I was out of the office today, so, which is why I wanted to send this stuff to you yesterday, just because I knew I wasn't gonna be in today, so you'd have something updated.
No, I appreciate that too.
So yeah, so I'll get you that number. It's over 100,000 at this point, maybe like 120, I want, somewhere
I
around.
would think that's probably pretty fair, considering how much salt they had to use this year. Okay, Article 48, unpaid bills from a prior year. I guess you don't have any at this point,
There aren't any, so,
so you'll take no
I don't
action.
know how you did that last year.
You take no action.
If
if
we
there's
had
no- there's
any
no-
last year.
Yeah,
Yeah, we actually had some last year, so, the article needs to stay the way it is so that if anything comes up between now and town meeting, we have the ability to take care of it.
Yeah, but if we
But
recommend no
once
action,
they
then we can put the substitute motion in too.
Yeah.
Right, so if you want to just say, recommendation to be provided at town meeting, and then you can at that
That
point
gets us
say.
into that gray
skip over
area,
item.
where the
What?
moderator has stated in the past, we've given you plenty of time to consider your motion. You need to make a motion. You can't do the recommendation at town meeting, although I understand where you're coming from. I think our motion here is we take no action, and we can always issue our own substitute motion if we have to when we get to town meeting floor. Because we'll know the number
Okay.
well before the town meeting, and we can give it to the moderator weeks in advance.
Okay,
or the night of. Or the night of.
Or the night of, either way. All right, so can I have a motion of no action for Article 48, unpaid bills?
So moved.
Mike. Whoops. No act. Do I have a second?
No.
Ken? Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Still 7-0. Okay, great.
Go back here.
And Barbara, we fully behind you. If we need to put a substitute motion, we'll be right there to do it.
okay.
And I said that was 7-0, right?
So I'll just add a comment back. There are no outstanding,
Bill.
let me just say, at the time of,
Yeah, Finance Committee vote. Transfer of funds to bond account. So I'm not, I understand what the summary box is telling me, but I guess how did this happen and how do we prevent it from happening again? So
Well,
we incorrectly
A
closed.
mistake happened, and how can I prevent that from happening? Well, I hope it doesn't happen again. The funds, when they were turned over, were coded as being something that they weren't, and then at some point in the past several months, a question was asked about this account, and there wasn't the right balance wasn't in the account, and upon research, it was determined that when $1,000 was turned over, it was coded incorrectly from the department that turned it over, so it was posted incorrectly. So, yeah, I mean, there's steps in place that this shouldn't happen, but sometimes, things happen.
No, I mean, but it's good to hear that, yep, we figured out what happened and that we have steps in place to prevent it from happening again. That's basically the answer.
Yeah, but will a mistake never happen again, Kevin? I wish that was the case, but I can't tell you that's gonna happen.
No, I agree.
Well, maybe not this mistake, but others.
No, hopefully not.
Question, right?
Thank you.
Sure, well, there's always mistakes made somewhere.
All right, then, so can I have a motion to approve Article 49 as written? Jim's the first. Do I have a second? Or Kathy? All right. Kathy, in case you missed it. Okay. Okay. I have a first and a second to approve the article as written, so all those in favor? 7-0. All right, transfer of funds to Last Call Foundation grant. Can you give us a little more insight as to, I mean, what was covered by the Last Call Foundation grant? What was it for? And, I mean, I think...
It was for body armor for the fire department. They received a $15,000 Last Call Foundation grant, and then they received an EMPG grant for, I think it was like $2,300 some dollars and cents. And when all was said and done, the cost of the body armor was $600.44 more. And we now need to make up the difference. And this was not in this fiscal year. So when the reimbursements came in for the grants, the $644 wasn't covered by the grants. But the reimbursement, the expense happened last fiscal year, and the reimbursement for the EMPG grant actually just came in like last week. So we're short $600.44.
So are we paying a bill from a prior fiscal year requires 9/10 vote? Or was this an article?
This is a shortfall on a grant reimbursement. So it's not an unpaid bill. The bill was already paid. It's just the grant didn't reimburse the full amount of the expenditure. So it's just a majority vote.
So I know someone's going to ask this question. What is body armor for a fireman? I know body armor for police officers can protect them from getting shot, but what is it for a fire person? Is it like, you know, when you're in a building and things start falling, burning timbers and things like that, that it doesn't pierce their suit?
I don't know.
Okay. Who has the fire department?
I can Google. I'm going to Google it right now.
I could find out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Or we could Google
But
it.
yeah, I'll ask the chief, and I'll email him and ask him for an explanation, and then just forward it to you guys like I've been doing the other stuff. I just think that works easier.
That's fine. That'll be perfect. I'd like to be able, if someone asks that question, you know, what would constitute body armor for a fireman person, that we would be able to answer that question. Because I've always heard of body armor in the context of police. I've never heard it in the context of fire.
Oh, I have pictures here.
Do the EMTs at a very difficult situation, do the EMTs stand off until the police control the situation so the EMTs can go in their regular uniforms? Or might they be in body armor as a safeguard?
I don't know that answer.
It does look like it's
I just don't know.
dangerous domestic calls it references as one thing, yeah.
Dangerous domestic calls, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there may be other uses too, but that looks like it's one. Yeah, for the EMS.
Yeah, well, it's been known that people will pick up a coffee table and throw it.
Yeah? No. I would, if you could just get the chief to give us a written explanation, that'd be great.
Of course.
Thank you. All right.
I really thought about that, but.
Are we going to hold it up to wait for that explanation?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where, we have to come back next week. We don't have
Well,
enough.
let's suppose you don't like the explanation. What are we going to do? Not fund the shortfall on the grant?
All right, Michael, that's a fair point.
Speaking as a layperson and a little bit of knowledge about it, it's for like if a firefighter gets called or a first responder firefighter gets called to an active shooter situation, they can't wait. It's not just for simple like, oh, it's a domestic and they're going to get into a knife fight. It's more like for active shooter now. So if a firefighter and those first responders are called to be waiting in the parking lot for injured people, fire, that's generally what it's for.
So,
Thank you, that's good to know.
Yeah, all right.
I don't want to speak for the fire department, but I happen to have that
Sure.
Background.
Makes sense.
I guess there could be a number of situations. I mean, it could also be domestic violence too, and
But they'll wait for the police to take care of that, but active shooter or a large-scale disaster, that's what it
if
comes
they get
to.
there first and somebody's injured.
So I have a first to approve the articles written from Mike Hager. Do I have a,
Okay.
and Jim will second it. Any other questions or comments then? All those in favor? I still like the explanation, just so we can give it officially, but we're approving that 7-0.
I hope I'm right, that's a lot of pressure.
No, I
It's ringing bells from my past discussions with the fire chief, so I think
Makes sense. It makes
we're
sense.
not shop next
Yeah, it
week.
makes a lot of sense.
You'll notice she waited for the call of the vote before she...
You bet.
All right.
Careful here.
All right, so that gets us through the special town meeting. I really don't have anything on the report of the Finance Committee yet. Things are obviously still in a serious amount of flux as far as warrant articles and warrants themselves. So, meeting minutes, I believe we got a set of meeting minutes.
We do.
I have to go dig them out here. Finance Committee.
I believe they were from April 19th.
Yeah, I've got to dig it out. Sorry. Go away. You have a kind of a timestamp when they came or when I sent them? Oh, here they are, Saturday, 4:30 at 7:52 PM. Beautiful. They are April 19th minutes. Oh, this is the one, all right.
When did you send it?
It's Saturday night. I had a busy Saturday, you can tell.
All right.
I just have Elisa's version from Saturday. I don't have one from you, Karen.
Oh, all right, Lisa sent it to everybody? Okay, maybe it was, and that's what I saw. So, we've got it.
Oh, okay, just making sure I
Yeah,
have the same
no.
one as everyone else.
I maybe noticed that she sent it to everybody, so we were in good shape, okay.
So I guess my only comment here is just structural at the top, right? So you talk about Finance Committee at the very top, meeting at the Board of Selectmen meeting. This is a Finance Committee set of minutes, so I would just label this Finance Committee minutes like we typically do. And then you have the call to order at 6:30. I would strike the sentence about the selectmen.
Call to order, yeah.
And you have the attendance from us, and then what I would do is just insert a sentence before we get to the Board of Selectmen members in attendance. You know, the Finance Committee attended the Board of Selectmen meeting to hear the presentation from Tig Bond on the sewer project over there as a lead-in, and then the rest of it kind of flows from there. You know, the selectmen will have their own set of minutes from their meeting. Maybe they'll acknowledge we were there or not, who knows, but this is our record versus a joint record.
So do you want Board of Selectmen members are in attendance, or should I leave those as guests?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that as is.
And I was not there. You have me as present, but I was not there.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Board sitting-
No, we were scattered all over.
I had another meeting.
So should that be absent?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was absent. Yeah, I wasn't there at all.
Other than the changes Mike has suggested, does anyone have any other comments? All right, so then I would take a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved.
That wasn't you, Mike? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Hang on. Do I have a second?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, wait. Any further questions or comments? I think Kathy's still reading. I can see scrolling going on.
She's gonna have,
Well, I'm going to abstain.
Oh, that's true. All right,
she's trying
then.
to find out what she missed. It was a very exciting night.
I wanted to see what went on.
All right, then, so I'll take a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Is that an abstaining?
I'm in favor.
Oh,
I'm
all right,
abstaining.
so 5-0 to 2. No, he was in favor.
I
he
voted
said.
in favor.
That's okay. No, thank you for checking, though. All right, so past meeting minutes.
So hang on, were you gonna make those edits and resend the file to us, or did you want me to clean those up and send them
I'll
out?
do it.
Okay,
Send it to you, and then
We'll just check them out, make sure that they're Mike's intent, and then we can, I mean, they're already voted as Mike amended them, so we can,
and then I'll get them to the clerk. Yeah,
sure.
they'll give me the okay to send them to the town clerk?
I won't even do that, I will take care of getting them to the clerk.
Oh, well, thank you.
He is our secretary.
That's right.
All right. He's good at it. All right, so let's go back here. What's next on the agenda? Old business. We did meet today with the charter committee. There was a great turnout. I'm very happy with the turnout, just because, you know, that we took their work very important in that we also took any changes in how we operated very important as well. And I think they heard what we had to say, and so that went well.
Yeah.
And then
When you say "we,"
there was, at the meeting was myself, Kathy, Ken, well, Larry's on the charter review, Jim was there, and,
What's my name?
yeah, what's your name? Jeff.
Right.
Mystery guest.
Everybody's Jeff. No.
Jeff, yeah.
I had a brief brain erasure take place right when I was going to introduce Lee.
The moderator was there too. Mike was there too.
Yeah.
That was good.
I can tell you that it did not escape the Charter Review Committee that just about everything that the Selectman Mary Dowling said in a different context underlined your points as they related to the planning board issue. The same reasoning was portable, and the committee noticed that.
That's good. That's good to hear. All right, then. Any other old business for anybody? Thank you, Larry, for your comments.
Oh, the student, I was going to tell you what the SCA was, if you want to know,
Oh,
Mike.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's the Student Conservation Association.
Oh, that's
It's
right.
made up of bachelor's and master's degree level environmental studies students, and they have a specialty in dealing with the outer limits of our trail system.
I think Tom Chamberlain gets them almost every year to come for a couple of weeks.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom's the one that,
Who
Yes.
arranged it? Yeah. All right, then. Next on the agenda, new business. Anybody? Questions, comments?
Want me to get suggested?
Oh, yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah, last week we talked about, you got a copy, right? We talked about the Standard & Poor's. Where's my copies?
Oh,
So I did a little research,
oh, thank you.
and it kind of maps out, this is a presentation I found, I was researching it. And if you look at a couple pages in, you'll see a chart, probably the most important chart. Page 5. This is 45 pages, I wasn't going to 45 pages, to be honest with you, so if you want a whole copy of it. But page 5 will give you the local government analytical framework as far as what they do, as far as percentage, as far as coming up with a S&P score. Okay. I think between S&P and Moody's, they comprise 80% of all municipal ratings, so you pretty much have it. Oh, sorry, I forgot about that. So Barb, what we have here is, there was a discussion last week of the S&P and the rating and on how they arrive at the rating system. So I did a little research, and I found the presentation was done by the Massachusetts Collectors and Treasury Association a few years back, and it was given by S&P, and it was a 45-page presentation, probably took quite a while. And on page 5, it basically gives the criteria for rating as far as a framework for what they do as far as municipalities. So I thought it was pretty important. It also has, positive credit factors, negative credit factors, and alike, and then a little bit of score as far as liquidity. Sure, I included that. Again, I didn't include all 45 pages. I think the initial question was that had to do with free cash, liquidity. So I want to make sure we include that in there. So it's pretty interesting overall looking at it. I think from our perspective, there's a lot of positive factors, obviously, that we have. Some of the negative ones, if you will, is the ability to basically grow your organic tax base, and we know we've been talking about that quite a bit. So that's a kind of issue. Older and slowing growing population. Our population in town hasn't been expanding as dramatically, and alike. And then, of course, there's the value of management. Our management is also important criteria as far as the rating system is concerned. So, anyway, it's something I thought we could take a look at, and from a financial perspective, may not be totally, pertinent to all decisions, but at least we know, from a rating systems perspective, what criteria they use. Again, it's 45 pages, so if anyone wants to get it, help yourself.
In the second document, Ken, what's that?
Yeah, the second document. Now, I was on a roll once I got the S&P thing, so I did a little bit more. I went into every single town and MassGov, and I looked at a couple of different criteria. You got the copy of that?
Yeah, I do. Jim. Jeff. Jim, Jeff, Mike.
Anyway.
Everybody called Jeff here today or something?
I know during one of the meetings we had, I guess it was Mary and we were talking about where we are as far as our comparison to other towns. So I believe they were probably conceivably using maybe the dollar amount per taxes. So I looked at the Massachusetts single-family tax as a percentage of value, home values, and we're at 1.92%. That's 8% of all Massachusetts towns. So 92% of the towns are lower from that statistic, okay, which doesn't give us much room. That's one place we don't have to fight to go to the top on that one. And the other one was the mill rate. And interesting enough, I noticed a lot of towns had a different mill rate for the residential versus commercial. We're identical at 19.15. A lot of other towns, they actually charge the commercial end of it much higher rates than the residential. So realistically, by being the same, we're actually giving these commercial entities a tax break to a certain extent. But again, if you look at residentials, once again, 7% of towns are higher than we are. So 93% of the towns, as far as the mill rate's concerned, are lower than us, 93%. So we only have about 7% to play with that. So, and methodology was I actually went through the report, 351 towns, and just looked at our mill rate and just counted how many towns were more or less than we were. And I guess one of the drivers of this was, when I looked at S&P's rating system, one was the ability to, tax the residents and increase revenue. And being that we're so high in a couple of these areas, we got to start being careful of how much more elasticity we have as far as taxing people. Again, one of the criteria is it growing? Is the revenue growing? Is the population growing? Is the business community growing? And that's what some of the things I guess we've been fighting all along. So I thought these were just a couple of ideas I had and analysis. I thought it was kind of important when we're making decisions and maybe future, budget plannings and alike, to kind of know where we are from this criteria.
So Kevin, a couple of comments. One, I'll give you a homework assignment to follow up on this. If you go to the town of Weston, where Lee Gomond moved to, look at their finance reports at the finance committee. They have a series of metrics that they track and kind of use along the line. That may be, something you may find, or we as a committee may find interesting to kind of track to get a feel for trends in terms of revenues and various different metrics. I thought it was pretty comprehensive when I saw it and looked at it last year. And second, you would struggle as an elected official setting the tax rates each year by saying that we're giving businesses a break by only charging the same as whatever. I think part of the decision making going in there is how to strike the right balance. A lot of those businesses, commercial, industrial, pay a fair amount of taxes overall versus residential, and finding the balance where they pay their fair share versus let's just keep taxing the businesses more and more because they must have a whole ton of money versus residents. So trying to find a balance so you kind of keep those businesses growing and active and reinvesting in the community there. So.
Hey, hang on one second there, though. I'm going to try and dig this out because we experimented. Well, we didn't experiment. We did do a split tax rate for a period of time. We did, yeah. And I have them all here in one of my property tax matrices I have, and I just have to dig it up. Just to give you an idea when it was, and it was not very successful. It really started to get skewed where the businesses were paying way more than would have been fair, and so we actually went out split tax rate, and it kept getting worse, and then we brought it back till we ended up to 1-to-1. So we got back to a unified tax rate in 2010, and we split it in fiscal year 2005. So we have done that in the past and found out it didn't work for the town of Sturbridge at that point. Granted, now that I look at it, it's 12 years ago, but that has been done here.
Yeah, only 29% of the towns, of the 351 towns, are actually higher than we are. So, point being, I think if we look at taxes and if we're not going to get it through residential, then the next thing to do is to take a look at the business side. And I'm not saying, again, just like the water, sewer, or what have you, I'm not saying go from the X to 20-30%, but maybe that's something we can somehow increase. At least look at that, and go forward on that as a part of it. Not sure, but it's something we should be aware of. Because again, if we're 93% higher than most towns, and 93 and 92% per this criteria, that's pretty high. I think the 65% that was mentioned at the meeting, I think that might have been the actual dollar amount. And I don't know if you can use a dollar amount. You can't compare here to Weston tax-wise. Weston might be $13,000, but their property's worth $1.5 million. That's not a fair comparison, really. And I'm with you, Mike. I think maybe looking at a benchmarks or dashboard here, maybe some of the things we look at down the road, whatever they may be, wouldn't be a bad thing either.
Yeah, so Barbara suggested at our last meeting that rather than just meeting around budget time and then dispersing for another year, maybe after we get through town meeting, get through the summer, we come back in the fall prior to the budget cycle, maybe talk about some of these other issues, or at least get a better feel for things coming our way, potential funding issues, and taking up topics, in that period of time, kind of in the fall there.
That was a great idea.
It'd be helpful for someone new to the board like me.
Even if we just meet one night a month for 3 or 4 months prior, or 5 months before the budget cycle.
I agree with you. I mean, it had to do, some of that even with the town administrator, the acting town administrator, talking about the capital planning and that, just to, even to get that ball rolling and put that more long-term and structural processing into place and how we're going to deal with it.
Yeah. I think at the charter meeting today was good discussion, but I think, like you mentioned, we were talking about, I think we do have the mechanism in place for a 5-year capital. You have 1-year operating budget and a 5-year planning budget. I think that's a good, and very good way to do it, excellent way to do it, like world-class way to do it. So we just got to sit down and just make sure that 5-year planning cycle gets more regimented as far as capital expenditures are concerned.
I think a good initial indicator, before you even get into the analysis portion of this, just as a prelude to it, excuse me, is you look at what percentage of your tax collections in a current tax year, what percent come from the commercial sector, the business sector, or the dollar amount, and the dollar amount that comes from residential real estate. And if you're getting 90% of your taxes now from residential real estate and 10% from business, and not to mention personal property taxes that come from business, because they're paying tax on what's inside the building too. And you look at that, you say, okay, how much do we have to increase those taxes to make a significant dent in, to make enough money? We may find that it's not worth the exercise, because if it's 90-10 now, how much can you increase that 10 to increase the 100? Do you know what you my drift? So sometimes you don't have enough mass of the business sector that you can put any percentage increase on them to make a significant change in the total pot of money that you end up with. Sometimes 1% on 90% is a lot more dollars than 20% on 10%. I'm just throwing numbers out, but that's an analysis that you can do with a thumbnail sketch. You don't have to get into, in-depth. You can do that by looking at the big picture, the big numbers.
Right.
I mean, if we had an industrial base like Southbridge, some of those buildings there, the stuff that's inside them is worth more than the property that the stuff is on.
Right.
So, because of the industry base. Same thing here. Some of the industry we have in Sturbridge that's high-tech, some of the machinery and equipment inside those buildings is worth far more than the real estate in the building that equipment is inside of. That's a distinguishing thing that you can look at too. You got $500,000 machines and you got 6 of them in a row. The building's not worth that much. So
it's true.
So what does that mean? Those machines get personal property tax on those machines, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Personal property tax.
You got to look at the whole picture.
That's
then.
why when you give somebody a TIF and they put up a building and they're not paying real estate tax on the incremental value, they are paying the tax on what's inside those buildings. From the day they open, they're paying the tax on that. They're just not paying on the real estate. If they put $50 million worth of machinery in there, they're paying tax on that.
And another way to look at it too is the difference between trying to attract business and giving them a tax break up front versus existing business. And I'm not saying we go from like 10% to 50%, but 10% to 17% or 10% to may make some sense, right?
Brings jobs.
Yeah.
Town of Weston report online?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just looking at it.
Oh, I want to go check that out.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments? So we will move on from new business.
That was new business.
Huh? Business?
Oh, I thought that was new business.
That was new business, yeah. So we're moving on to the next one, the next topic on the agenda, which is public access. We're just swamped with people again tonight. So we will move on from public access and move to adjournment. Anybody want to adjourn? I mean, no, Larry lives here. It's his permanent second residence. Kathy is the first. I have a second. Ken seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0 for adjournment at 9:24 p.m.